So how many of you have played the glad game? What is she talking about? Okay, you played the glad game? You played the glad game? Anybody know where the glad game comes from? Did you know when you were playing it where it was from? Well, I've got something exciting to tell you. You were playing the glad game if you ever watched the movie Pollyanna. Anybody see Pollyanna when you were a kid? Oh man, just like a handful of us saw Pollyanna. And probably, what, like 150 years ago? Well, I watched it just a few years ago. And so when I say the word Pollyanna, what do you think? What do you think? Happy.
Optimistic.
Optimistic.
Joyful.
Joyful. What else?
Annoying.
Annoying. Come on, who's with Duck? Anybody else? A little bit annoying. David's like, yeah, annoying. Pollyanna. So if Pollyanna is positive and optimistic and joyful and occasionally a little bit annoying, think about your own inner Pollyanna. What does it mean to be Pollyanna to you? Does it mean that you're joyful and optimistic? And isn't that what we come here for? To try to remember that that is the way we were made. We were made to be that. And we spend some time in our life getting away from that. And then we try to make our way back to it. So maybe Pollyanna isn't so annoying and isn't so silly. But a lot of the times that's what we say. Oh, that's so Pollyanna of you. Oh, I'm so tired of that positive attitude of yours. Well, you better find another church, because that's what's going on here in this building. Is trying to find the truth of the blessing and the positive nature in everything that there is, even when it's hidden sometimes. So to be Pollyanna is to play the glad game. And what she would do, if you don't remember this story, Pollyanna was a little girl who ended up an orphan, but she was taught by her father to find the blessing in everything. So when she would have a challenge, she would turn it around by being glad for 3 things. That's to play the glad game. To stop and to say, what am I glad for? What am I glad for? Take a moment and think about one way that you'd fill in that sentence. I am glad that, fill it in. Everybody got at least one. Okay, now take a second one. I am glad that. Everybody got 2? Yes. Okay, so turn to somebody next to you and briefly tell them, what were you glad for? I am glad that. I am glad that. Share your gladness. So you're grateful for, you're glad that. Love it. Love the conversations. Poor Jeanette. Poor Jeanette is doing contortionist movements over here. Where is she going? She's going rogue again. Oh, I'm grateful for a hair clip to get my hair off my neck after zooming down from the kids' room. So who's got one that they'll share with us that you're glad that? I'm glad that.
I'm sober.
I'm sober. Woo! Gail.
I'm glad for friends and family and unity.
Friends and family and unity. All right. Who else?
Sun is shining.
The sun is shining. That was on Chris's list. Yep. What else? Glad that.
Bruce and I are both glad that our moms are alive.
Oh, wow. That's great. Yeah. Grateful for the family that we're going to see at Thanksgiving. Grateful for the family we're not going to see at Thanksgiving. Oh, I'm glad that. Did you feel how the energy changed in the room? Right? Like we should just all walk around playing the glad game. How different life would be. And it's not Pollyanna in the negative way, is it? You are truly grateful for those things. So Perhaps if you walked in a little down, it might have shifted our energy. Or if you walked it in uplifted, it might have lifted you up even more. And so our energy changes when we're grateful. It changes our body chemistry. It changes everything about us. So I think that Pollyanna was a spiritual master. She must have been 8 years old, but she was a spiritual master, teaching us that we could be grateful. Even in her case, when she loses the use of her legs during the movie, it's actually kind of a pretty inspiring movie. You may want to go rent it or see if it's on Netflix. So if she's a spiritual master, then she joins the other spiritual masters that we were talking about last week. I want to bring back a couple of the great quotes that I shared last week from spiritual masters of gratitude. Because repetition is a good thing. Because if I asked you right now, even though, yes, last week we covered this. We covered gratitude, right? Check the box. We covered all of this. Who can quote one thing that I said last week? Oh, we got one over here. Gratitude. Excellent. Can anybody remember the Myrtle Fillmore quote?
I heard it this morning, I can't remember.
Yeah. I said it this morning and I can't remember it. So let's repeat from last week, shall we? It's always good to start with Myrtle. Our master, Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, said, "Praise and thanksgiving have within them the quickening spiritual power that produces growth and increase." Gratitude produces growth and increase. Gratitude. I remember the prayer of Jabez was big about 10 years ago to pray that your fold would expand, and we were all praying it. We all went out and bought the little book because there's a quickening that happens with gratitude. You know that it can shift you out of a bad mood. And even if it doesn't bring you up to Pollyanna's level, let's say, shifting that energy at least moves the dial. We may not go from utter depression, if we suffer from that, to utter joy, but we can start gradually moving the dial. That's what the teaching of Abraham from Esther Hicks does for us. She reminds us not to expect that we're going to jump 14 levels at once, but that we can move in the right direction, one step at a time. In the right direction eventually gets you there. So one step at a time. And then when we're used to practicing this, we can speed up those steps. We can start to move it quicker by practicing. By taking these teachings and reading about them and using them like Myrtle did. She gave thanks in advance for a healed body. And over 2 years, her body healed. And we can give thanks in advance for whatever blessings that we would like to see. And so that's what I love about Pollyanna and the Glad Game, is that she is reminding us that there is a quickening power in gratitude. And let me tell you, for the last 2 weeks, I've been living gratitude. Since we talked about it last week and this week, the great thing about being a minister sometimes is that you get to really live the teachings. And the bad thing about being a minister sometimes is that you really get to live these teachings. But the last 2 weeks were really fun. It's all about gratitude. And I really dove deep, and really every morning I would wake up and think about gratitude, think about Thanksgiving. And I really kept getting into, what does it really mean? Because it's easy to say the word, and we all know how to do the basics. I'm like, how do I take it to that next level? And as I worked with it over 2 weeks, especially a little bit longer, I found for me that there were 3 levels of it. There was a moving of the dial from the basic to an intermediate perhaps, and then to an advanced level, like what the masters do. And so it starts with thanksgiving. That's the first level, thanksgiving. Then we move to thanksgiving, and then we move to ThanksLiving. Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving, ThanksLiving. You start at a level where you know to be grateful for the things that you've gotten. You write the thank you notes. You are grateful for whatever came your way this week. Great. That is wonderful. And it's important, and we never lose sight of that. But we can move out of just Thanksgiving. We can move out of what I called the quid pro quo of gratitude. As long as I get it, then I'm going to give it. I got a gift, now I'm grateful. So now, let's move to the next level. From Thanksgiving to Thanksgiving. I said it's like moving from asking, what are you grateful for, to what are you grateful from? More of a place of knowing that this is the Christ nature of me, and this is what I give from. And I'm giving out gratitude, even before I know it. And you got to do that this week, didn't you? You got to do a little Thanksgiving. What did we give you last week? $20. A lot of us got $20 last week. Oh, those of you who missed church, you're sad now. Wow, they were giving out money last week. Dang, why don't I come every week? Oh. So what we did, though, is in advance, we had gratitude for the gifts that we get as a church. And because we do that, we are a tithing church. We give 10% of what comes in first. Before we pay the bills, we pay Spirit. And this week, the last week, what we did was we paid that to you. And we said, here's $10, $20. We want you to go out and make gratitude. Go out and share it. Our tithe to you was for you to tithe to somebody else. Really put our money into action. And so I'd like to hear from anybody. I've got a special one we're going to have at the end. But Lottie, what'd you have? Dottie, excuse me.
That's okay. I'm sorry that Lottie isn't here.
I know, I was thinking of Lottie today. Yes, so Dottie, what happened for you?
I gave the $10 to one of the gals at work who was going to use the $10 to buy something in addition to, on Thursdays we always have pizza, so she was giving us something in addition to that, some wings or something for everybody.
Okay.
And the other $10 I gave to my dear friend who has been shopping for me for several years. It's hard for me. And she was also adding her $10 to that. And in addition to a savings that she got, a coupon savings, she was able to buy an extra pair of shoes. So everybody gave as I gave.
Oh, that's great. So your giving led to other giving for people bringing food and getting shoes. That's great. That's great. Who else had a good giving experience? David, what'd you do?
I didn't.
I love it. He's standing up. Take the floor.
I wasn't here last week.
Okay.
A year ago and 2 years ago, I gave my $20 to Fresh Start. They do surgeries on children who can't afford, whose parents can't afford the med. And some of these surgeries are like tens of thousands of dollars and have to be done on children of very poor.
Thank you. So he gave to Fresh Start, who does surgeries for children in need. Don, what did you do?
I buy $1 items at a certain store for people that I serve at the Lutheran home once a week.
Oh, that's great. He bought little $1 items. Who loves the dollar store, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, cute little gifts. That's great. And I'm going to ask Jeanette to come forward, if that's okay. Jeanette, would you come forward? Because, yeah, hers deserves a microphone. She had a one. Jeanette, I don't need a microphone. Jeanette.
Although I have a cold, so maybe I'm getting over it. Okay, it's okay
It's
to
good
use
to
the
use the
mic.
mic, yeah.
When we left church last Sunday, Trudy Metz had invited us to lunch. So we went to lunch with Trudy. We were sitting there having a lovely lunch in a very nice restaurant. And then this gentleman came up to my husband. My husband is a veteran, and he was wearing a cap that indicated the ship he'd been on. And the man came up to my husband and he said, "Thank you for your service." And my husband asked him if he had served in the military, and he said no, he hadn't, but his father had. And he told us a little bit about his father, the medals he had won, 2 Purple Heart, etc., etc. And then he went. That family left, and they went on their way. After they left, the waitress came up and said that he had bought our meal.
Oh my.
Now, it was so amazing to me that he bought it without a thank you. That just made it more special. All week I kept thinking about, wow, he did that without a thank you. And so we each gave 10 of our dollars to the waitress. And Then I was going to give our other two $10 that we had to the lady that cleans our condo. She cleans 4 7-story condos. I can't imagine it. I couldn't believe that she did all of that. And in a day, cleaning 2 hours in each condo building. She was gone this week, so I couldn't give it to her, but I wanted to give it privately, so she would know who it came from. Okay.
Thanks, Jeanette. Thank Jeanette for me, would you? That's so great. Before you were even giving, I think it's that attitude of gratitude that comes up, you know, and as you start to look around, you start to see where it's at work everywhere. I remember one of the best things that ever happened to me was I was in line at a buffet and the person in front of me had paid for my lunch when I got up there. And there's no feeling like it. You know, I remember I also tried to buy a cup of, okay, you're gonna laugh, but a donut at Dunkin' Donuts one time. They were in front of me and he just wouldn't let me buy it. And I tell you, it was a bribe, but I was like so disappointed. I so wanted to give him that donut. So we don't have to stop there. The gratitude continues. Oh yes, I'm sorry, we've got a big hand.
I just have to share a story that someone told me once, and she said, you know how people are in the drive-thru at Starbucks and they buy the person behind them, they buy their order. And she said, instead of that, remember that person can afford Starbucks. Why don't you give the money to the barista who's working in a Starbucks? And I thought, it's kind of a good...
Wow, that's great. Yeah, boy, that's really interesting. Thanks for mentioning that. And now we can all be looking for those places where we can be more in that attitude of giving forward. And the word that I used last week was grativancitude, which brings you into that next level of living and giving. Grativancitude. You want to say that with me? Grativancitude. So grativancitude is an attitude of gratitude in advance. It's living from a place of thanksgiving where it almost becomes unconscious. It just happens. You find yourself ThanksLiving. You move into a place that you are so grounded in knowing the goodness of God in all things. You get to a place in your life where you realize every challenge that you had eventually got worked out, didn't it? It may have been difficult at the time, but you're all sitting here as testament that whatever you've been through, you're still here. And y'all look good. So, it didn't take too hard a toll on you, that actually here you are. And it's all of that that brought you here and made you who you are, and that's where you can live from. Without any shame or any guilt about what's happened, you can trust and have faith that life keeps moving. And it's always spiraling upward, is what Charles Fillmore said. We are always spiraling upward. We may have setbacks, but they help us move on eventually. And so Pollyanna can live from the glad game every day. You can start out your day that way. And because I've been living it for about 2 weeks now, I mean really intensely, and studying it and reading a lot, I noticed that something started to shift for me this week. And I mean, I've been doing this gratitude thing for like 30, 40 years, right? Probably as a teenager, I wrote my first gratitude journal. It's not like this is brand new, but it's like a lifetime of looking at this, a lifetime of Thanksgiving weeks, where you start really paying attention to it, kind of sunk in really deep these last 2 weeks. And what I discovered, first of all, was a healing in my hands. I've been working on some carpal tunnel issues that I've been temporarily experiencing in the physical form. A little bit of that, and being in a healing class, we did a lot of praying and talking and reading. How many of you were in that healing and wholeness class? Yeah, about 5 of us here today. And healings were happening, and my thumbs feel better. They absolutely feel better, and I'm much more calm about it. Of course that doesn't help, right? There's the tension. But I was working with my hands and I started to notice that. And then I started to notice that when I woke up, especially I noticed it yesterday, I usually wake up pretty happy, But it takes a beat, like, kind of for me to think of it, and then I go into my routine meditating. But I woke up sort of awash in gratitude. I didn't have to think about anything. There was no Thanksgiving, there was no Thanksgetting, there wasn't a thought about even a thing or even a quality. It was just living me. Gratitude was living me. And I am gratitude. I am the Christ. I am all of those things that we talk about, the 12 powers. I am love, I am power. I am those things. And then this was, I am gratitude. The very fact that I exist is an expression of gratitude. And then I'm driving in the car, and all I'm thinking, or not even thinking, it's so hard to describe. It's like I'm being gratitude as I'm driving. There's just this love, like a Care Bear, just, love, sprinkles and sparkles everywhere. But not phony. Not phony. Hey, these hands still hurt some mornings when I wake up, and this neck sometimes does its thing, and, I have things that I'm working on, but they all lightened up a lot. That's ThanksLiving. So we get out of the transaction and we put it first. Rick Warren, I said last week, Rick Warren has a great way that he says it. He says, when you wait till you get the blessing to thank God, that's gratitude. When you thank God before the blessing, that's faith. That's faith. Faith is gratitude. Faith is knowing the good thing even when we're not seeing it right here. And that's a master level of gratitude. That's how you can move the needle up. You can move up the mountain of gratitude. And we need all the levels of gratitude. I mean, when someone brings a bottle of wine to your party, of course, you're going to say thank you. And of course, you might still do your gratitude journals. All of these levels make a difference. And as we keep working with them, what we find out is that they start to take over. And we shift how we are. And so I'm going to share with you one of my favorite gratitude practices that helps me ThanksLiving into my day. And if you are able, go ahead and stand. I'm going to share with you what puts me in a ThanksLiving frame of mind. So I'm going to share with you what Arturo and I do every morning, all right? You guys can get in place. I forgot to tell you. Just a quick moment. You're going to start right away. Okay. There, pretend that didn't just happen. Smooth, I know. Okay. So, every morning we got this from a friend, and I've done this a couple of times, but I bet you, probably most of you don't even remember, do you? B kind of remembers, maybe, yeah. So repetition is good. So we say this very silly thing. If you speak Spanish, it's silly on purpose. Okay, ready? I'm going to say it, and then you're going to repeat after me. Today is going to be mucho bueno, mucho bueno, mucho bueno. Ready? Today is going to be mucho bueno, mucho bueno, mucho bueno. Okay, I like it. Ron's already got the point over here. There's got to be a movement that goes with it, and here's the movement that we use. We basically jump 3 times, okay? So, or just move your heels or just bounce, whatever's healthy for you, all right? See, everybody, Angela's having a hoot back there. I love it. Okay, so today is going to be mucho bueno, mucho bueno, mucho bueno. Oh my gosh, you guys look great. Let's do it one more time. Today is going to be mucho bueno, mucho bueno, mucho bueno. And part 2, if you want to go really advanced, then we say, something absolutely awesome is happening to me today. It's in the present tense, it's already happened, actually, future tense. Something absolutely awesome is happening to me today. Ready? Something absolutely awesome is happening to me today. I believe you. One more time. Something absolutely awesome is happening to me today. Because you are in ThanksLiving. I see it. Happy Thanksgiving. May it be mucho bueno.
To breathe in the Holy Spirit.
Each breath is an opportunity for gratitude as the Holy Spirit moves in and through us and has its being. I invite you to wiggle your toes and let them be relaxed. In gratitude for having feet that can walk, I invite you to clench your hands and release them. In gratitude for their ability to work and love and hug. I invite you to scrunch up your face and allow it to relax. In gratitude for our sight to see this beautiful universe. Our hearing to listen to the beautiful music and the bird songs. Our taste that we might have turkey and stuffing. The smell of the turkey now. The gratitude for the hands that prepared the meal. The gratitude for the farmers. Gratitude for the turkey who gave its life. And the broccoli too. I am uplifted in this Holy Spirit of breath. Gratitude for the physical, gratitude for the emotional, and gratitude for the spiritual, as we now embrace as we sit in the silence. In this time of recognizing our true abundance,